Our big focus, a five-judge bench of the Supreme Court has unanimously declared the electoral bonds scheme as unconstitutional. While delivering the verdict, the CJI Chandrachud stated that the scheme infringes upon the right to information of the voter by anonymizing contributions and is violative of Article 19(1)(a). The Supreme Court has further observed that there is a legitimate possibility that financial contributions to a political party would lead to quid pro quo management arrangements because of close nexus between money and politics. Addressing the scheme's objectives of combating black money, Chief Justice of India Chandrachud has further emphasized that the electoral bond scheme is not the only means for curbing black money in electoral financing and that there are other alternatives which substantially fulfill the purpose and impact the right to information minimally. Additionally, with respect to the donor confidentiality clause of the electoral bond scheme, the court has also highlighted that the right to privacy of political affiliation does not extend to contributions made to influence public policy. Now, donations to political parties have conventionally been made via cash. Remember, the electoral bond scheme brought about in 2018 served as a bid to change this. Now that it has been scrapped by the apex court, are we back to square one? Well, if electoral bonds is not the solution and cash poses its own issues with obscure paper trails, what is now the way ahead? How do we promote transparency in electoral donations, and also how do we protect the anonymity meanwhile of donors too is something we're going to be looking at. Joining us at this point is Javier Rodriguez, BJP leader. We also have Swati Malik, Congress spokesperson, joining us live. Adarsh Kuniyalam, political analyst, joins us live, as does Nikhil Jain, political analyst as well. Savio, let me begin with you first. What do you make of the Supreme Court verdict today, and what do you believe its ramifications are going to be on political funding going forward?
Well, I think it's very important, not because I belong to the BJP, but also because I am a citizen of this country. And I have been an advocate of the fact that there should be complete transparency as far as electoral donations are concerned. Because today we are perched as a nation that is growing economically, and we do not want certain quarters to control the outcome of elections in India through funding which does not have transparency. So I certainly welcome the decision of the Supreme Court. I think it is a decision that is right in the spirit of the intent of the decision, because at the end of the day, whether it is electoral bonds, whether it is cash, whether it is a transaction that has happened for the purpose of elections to a political party by an individual or an organization, there has to be complete transparency as far as that is concerned. Now, why is it important to look at these other aspects of the electoral donation? Many a times, those people who come out and actually donate to a particular political party, whether they are individuals or business entities, many a times they could become victims of these political donations when a political party comes in power that has not received political donations from them. And therefore, there is an amount of certain amount of secrecy that is required, or better laws that protect donors who are providing money to political parties at times of elections or other times. That's where the real complication is, what I see, because in order for us to be transparent, the transparency cannot put in danger the businesses or the lives of the people who are providing donations to political parties. And then that, I think, is a bit of a gray area. So while I certainly appreciate what the Supreme Court has done, and I've been a strong advocate of the fact that there should be transparency, I don't think we have a solution to that gray area of donors, of business entities who are donors to be protected unless, when they get targeted by political parties for not donating to a political party.
Okay, let me take that across to Swati Malik as well. Swati, your first reaction to the verdict today. How is the Congress viewing what the Supreme Court has ruled, and what impact do you believe this will have on political funding going ahead?
Thank you for having me on the show, and we're thankful to the Supreme Court for actually, exposing this scam, this political scam that has been started by the BJP. And right from the beginning, since 2017, we have been opposing it, only for the fact that there is no transparency, it's opaque, and it's going to lead to political corruption. Right from the beginning, that is what the Congress has been saying, not only through media, but through each platform. And so we welcome the verdict. It's very important and not just, it's also made very clear to the public at large now that the BJP has gone to all levels just to cover up its corruption. This is political corruption. There is, like the Supreme Court judgment, I'm sure we've all at least gone through the head notes so far. So it clearly talks about how it's, breach of unconstitutional, violates the right to information. There is a higher chance of a quid pro quo, and all those aspects have been like unconstitutional. So we welcome the verdict and we are thankful to the Supreme Court for exposing.
Savio, your quick response, yes.
What the Congress panelist is saying, I appreciate that. I'll just give you a little bit of statistics as far as the disclosure of unknown sources are concerned. The TMC was 96.77% of the funding that they received, they did not disclose. The Indian National Congress was 71.84%. Income that they received, they did not disclose. The CPIM was 48.48%. Income they received, they did not disclose. And the NCP was 20.41%, which they received but did not disclose. So I find it rather humorous that Congress and other leaders in TMC or other political parties that are in the opposition are now talking about being saintly, because when these electoral bonds were brought about, the disclosure clearly shows that the opposition party itself was not disclosing their sources of the income. So they cannot play saints right now when they are sinners as well. So the idea is almost all political parties must be made to be transparent as far as election funding is concerned, whether it's the BJP as well. And as a BJP leader, I am saying it. But to say that this is a verdict of the Supreme Court to expose the fraud of the BJP is absolutely ridiculous. Because if you go by this data of the revelation of the sources of income, then why hasn't the political parties that are appearing to be holier than thou now not disclosed the funds sources itself? In fact, TMC had only 0.05% of its electoral funds that they had collected from donations. The rest all have come from donors, which is 96.77%, which they have not disclosed.
Can I request Mr. Rodman to also give the data for BJP? What percent?
Yes, I'll tell you that. It was 60%.
You've given out the opposition.
60.56%. 60.56%.
Did they disclose? The BJP is the party.
60.56%.
I really appreciate
60.56%. But 96 and 71 is certainly more than 60.56%.
I'm giving you a compliment. I really wish the BJP would consult you more often, rather, because you are giving very positive approach to this judgment. But unfortunately, the government, your party is differing from what you are saying right now.
Okay, let me bring in the others. Adarsh Kuniyalam, come in here. Now, regardless of BJP, Congress, I'll come back to you, Swati. The others haven't spoken at all. Regardless of course, making this just BJP, Congress, overall, Adarsh Kuniyalam, what do you make of the verdict today? Do you believe that it is a step in the right direction, or do you believe that it's, that the Supreme Court took a step in a bit of a hurry?
Well, I personally believe that there was a bit of hurry in this verdict, because we all know that political transparency is very much needed. Now, when we take about, let us not make it about NDA or UPS or anything like that, but let's say about in the period 1970-75 itself, there were so many cases in the Supreme Court where the Supreme Court themselves have said that money is playing a very dominant role in politics. So it is visible before our eyes that money in the form of cash money is playing a predominant role in our society to influence the outcome of elections. So this has been happening for a long time in India. We all know this. Now, the second aspect is, in 2017, when this bill was brought about, the major important thing why this bill was brought forward was transparency in electoral funding. And transparency, that it was not just, we wanted a system that is away from the cash form or the liquid form of system, liquid flow of money. So that is where the electoral bond system was first mooted, and the idea was mooted. Let me tell you one thing: every political party in India has benefited from out of this. It's not about the BJP, it's not about the Indian National Congress, it's not about the Trinamool Congress. Every political party was able to encash it within the 15-day limit that was as per the electoral bond scheme. So when every party is very much keen on encashing the bonds which were allotted to them, then obviously there is they indirectly support this move. This is what I could see, because ultimately political parties can sustain only with the right amount of funding. So this was a transparent system. This was a clearly laid out system. I don't think the Honorable Supreme Court of India questioned the transparency of the system. Rather, from what I could have a quick look at the verdict, they were questioning the certain way in which it was brought to. That is, it was brought to the Finance Act. Then there were the questions about the petitioner side had raised questions about the Companies Act, the Reserve Bank of India Act, and all these portions were asked by the petitioners. So I don't think even this Honorable Supreme Court of India will have a problem with a transparent electoral funding. But the thing is, we definitely need such a system, whether it is electoral bond system or some other system, but we definitely require a move away from the cash-dominated political system. This is what I personally feel.
Okay. Nikhil Jain, which way should the system head after this verdict today? What do you make of the Supreme Court ruling and, of course, the observations made while passing the order today?
Today, I think all the panelists on your show have so far agreed that we need greater transparency in the way elections are financed in this country. And what the Supreme Court has done today, I feel, is take a step back in the right direction, because until the electoral bond scheme was in place, a company could not donate more than 7.5% of its profits. And there did not exist any legal way to give large sums of money in complete anonymity to a political party. I could have always, handed over a cash of 1 crore rupees, briefcase full of 1 crore rupees in cash to a political party, but that was illegal. What the electoral bond scheme did was made it legal that I could transfer crores and crores to a political party without anybody ever knowing. However, the level playing field was completely destroyed by the fact that these bonds were issued by SBI, and the ruling party had an unfair advantage that they knew who were issuing it. And I feel this decision is a step in the right direction. And one thing important that a lot of people are not talking about is the fact that the Supreme Court has also issued directions now to the SBI to not only just not issue these bonds anymore, but also disclose the details of donees so far. I think if you look at it from an electoral perspective, moving forward ahead of the Lok Sabha elections, I think the people of the country will finally know that the thousands of crores of rupees that electoral bonds were used to give to political parties, and 95% of it went to the BJP, who were the players that were giving that money. This I think might turn around the election. This I think might give a lot of credence to the Congress's arguments and the Rahul Gandhi's arguments that it is the Adani group and the Ambani group who've been funneling thousands and thousands of crores to the BJP, for which they've been giving been given undue advantage by the government. So I think it's a brilliant decision, and this is something that is, I feel, long overdue. It should have been done a lot ago. We just saw the results in 3 state elections. Perhaps things might have been different had the Supreme Court delivered its judgment right away, because they had heard the matter in November 2023 itself, and they had reserved the judgment. But it's only now that the judgment is coming. But yes, of course, it's brilliant that the judgment has finally at least come before the Lok Sabha elections.
All right, why don't you come in there? Savio, clearly Nikhil Jain also trying to attack the BJP over there, saying that possibly the electoral outcome in the last elections would have been different had this verdict come earlier. Also, this is a boost to Rahul Gandhi's campaign, is what Nikhil Jain says. Savio, your response?
Nikhil is a dear friend, and I know he has to attribute everything towards Rahul Gandhi, though it may not necessarily be true, and that's all right. That's his job. The most important thing for us as a country, and Nikhil knows me, when I speak the truth. I'm not speaking as a BJP spokesperson, I'm speaking as a citizen of this country. The most important thing for us to get down to reality is to accept the fact that black money or cash is a part of the electoral process, which sometimes can lead to convolution of the electoral processes. And therefore, we have to deal with that with a strict form of transparency. electoral bonds were brought with that intent to have a level of transparency. But where it erred, and that is what the Supreme Court is actually held the concerned leaders and political parties for, is that you have to be transparent as from where the donors are. Because if you do not have transparency in where the funding is coming from, you are doing exactly the same thing, but not with cash in hand. That's the real difference. So I think in the interest of the people of the country, it is important for all of us to know who's funding which political party, and whether it's the BJP, whether it's the TMC or the Congress or any political party. It is important to know the source of funds. The reality of the situation is that all political parties try to, skirt this particular issue. And no matter the intent was correct of the BJP with the electoral bonds, I think it should have gone a step further by ensuring transparency as far as the donors. But then you come into a catch-22 situation. How do you protect the donors who are putting in money through the electoral bonds? And that is something that the court and the government must be able to come together to understand, or to put in place a law that allows for that protection to the donors, so that he or that entity would not be victimized. But we're not answering that crucial question, which is how do you stop the donor from being victimized?
Yes, Swati Malik, you had a point to make. You can come back in now. And also, you've heard what the others had to say. Please respond.
I absolutely agree with Mr. Rodriguez, actually. I agree with him that all political parties should be transparent, and there should be some sort of transparency. And that's why I was suggesting earlier that the core team, BJP, should actually be consulting me more often. But the problem here is that even the Election Commission, RBI, they all talked about when these laws were changed in 2017, they all feared money laundering. And that's what's been happening. We don't know who has contributed this 5,200 crores to BJP, and was it, and again, no specific name, but was it Mr. Adani's group, and what did they get in return? What the airports given? What happened? The coal mines were given? What really went on behind? And that's why I agree with Nikhil absolutely out here, that there is no transparency only towards the opposition, only for the opposition and the general public. And just to correct Mr. Rodriguez, just a small point, that although he's been saying that the intent of this act was to bring in transparency, during the arguments, the central government said that the voters have no right to know who has contributed what towards which political funding. This was the argument made in this matter in the Supreme Court. So when you say that the intent was to bring in transparency, but somehow we erred out there, well, that's a very noble thought, but that's all we are left with at the end of this judgment, right? But again, Nikhil's absolutely right. With SBI knowing who are the actual donors, the government has knowledge, has information. So therefore, it's an unfair playing ground here. That although the center, the government has all the knowledge of who's giving who what, even whatever 92% has gone to them, the remaining whatever percentage has gone to opposition. I'm sure they have information about that. And as far as protecting the voters, the donors is concerned, well, once there is transparency, everybody will be at the same level playing ground, and that's when everyone will be protected equally as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Avio.
We collectively are trying to arrive at what should be the best transparency mode that we have to look at election donations. But we cannot hide from the fact that donors are subject to being victimized. So no matter how much transparent you are, political parties are known, political leaders are known to victimize people. So let's not live in a fool's paradise.
Others, come in here. What happens next? There will be donors who would want anonymity as well, but then we need transparency too. How do we balance the two?
Well, I'll just
go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you two things. One, the first and the most important thing is, like I have already said, this was a transparent model, and I do not understand from where this 5,000 crores figure had popped up regarding the donation to the BJP. from what I could get from the Supreme Court verdict itself, they have clearly laid out that it was close to 1,200 crores. And the Congress had received nearly close to 200 crores, and Trinamool Congress had received somewhere around 400 crores. So like I mentioned before, every major political party had received a good share of amount through the electoral bonds. Now, talking about the companies, yes, it may be true that the companies have been donating to the political parties. We know this for a long time. Many companies would be donating to the political parties. But the companies already have a system to display, although they cannot disclose which political party they had donated to, but they have to disclose that so much of money, certain sum of money had been donated through electoral bonds. So there is transparency. The only question here is we don't know which political party they have donated to, and that is not a major thing of concern, because every political party ultimately receives a certain amount of money through donations, through corporate funding, and various other things. But what is required is whether there is transparency. So I personally found the scheme as transparent. Now, what is the way forward? The way forward after this verdict definitely would be this. This was actually a public funding of the elections. Now, what we could expect is maybe a state funding of elections in the future. That could be something that can be thought at.
Nikhil Jain? Nikhil Jain? Have we lost Nikhil? Okay, I think so. All right. Adarsh, I don't know how practical that suggestion is. Savio, your quick response on whether that's possible. Also, Savio, there are some, critics of the government today on social media. They're saying perhaps this could be headed to an ordinance route. Is that something that the government is considering?
Well, Uday, I'm not privy to the step what the government is going to take forward. But I do know that, like, I come back to the intent. The intent was to bring transparency back into election funding. And there has been certain aspects of it that we needed to have checked. And therefore, the Supreme Court has held the government decision to be unconstitutional. And therefore, we have to figure out a new way in which transparency can be brought in. And for us as citizens, you see, at the end, it's always that. What is it that is important for the citizen to know? The citizen must know the source of the funding, because there are many companies that are in India that want to control the outcome of the elections and want to control the government so that their projects, their plans get fructified. And that kind of donation, which may be from people that don't work in the interest of India, could be extremely dangerous. And therefore, transparency is very important. And we need to bring that in. If the Supreme Court has found it unconstitutional, we'll have to find another way to ensure more transparency and the information of these donors, who need to be protected as well through some sort of a mechanism or some sort of a law. Right now, this is an extremely gray area. We came into power to stop black money or money laundering, but has black money in elections stopped? Please look at the number of raids that were conducted prior to elections in the recent times, and how much of black money was caught. So the mere fact that it's not the system that is set that is being corrected. If a system would have been corrected, the black money itself would have vanished. But you cannot vanish black money, because the people working within that system to eradicate black money have failed in eradicating black money. And black money is making its way through many elections that are around. And that's why
okay. I've run out of time. I'm going to have to leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.